Hey guys, this is Sarah from the Boo Sewing Center, and today I'm talking about piping feet. So Babylock and brother make 3 piping feet. We make a purl and piping foot, the piping foot left, and the mini piping foot. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the piping foot left. So I have a picture of the 3 different feet up here. The thing that sets the different feet apart is the size of the piping that you can use. So in the piping foot left and the mini piping foot, we can use up to 2 millimeters in piping. So it's actually pretty small. And in the piping, the purl and piping foot, we can use piping that is up to 1/4 inch thick. So we've got a much bigger piping that we can do. So I have done videos on the purl and piping feet and the mini piping foot already. So if you are looking for information on those very 2 specific feet, you can check out our YouTube video for that information. However, making piping is pretty much the same. The only thing that really changes is the size of your piping and the position of your needle. So I already have the piping foot left foot on my machine, so I'm going to get rid of these. And we're going to start with a piece of bias fabric. So I have cut this fabric on the bias, which means it's really stretchy. The advantage of making piping with bias fabric is that it has the stretch and the give, so it's going to fold around your piping better. It's going to lay flatter, and it's going to give you the ability to manipulate the piping later on, so you'll be able to put it in things that are curved, so around edges or turn corners, because you can give it a little bit of a stretch and it'll kind of work its way into that position. The other thing that this is going to help is that when we're actually creating the piping, we won't have to worry about the fabric sort of pleating and turning into wrinkles or gathering, because we'll be able to work that out with the stretch. So you want to make sure that your piping is longer than your fabric piece, because inevitably while you're stitching, you might accidentally tug on your piping a little bit and pull it. It's really easy to do that. So what I'm going to do here, the actual spot for the piping on this particular foot happens to be over here, since it's the left piping position. So what I'm going to do is I'm using the knee lift on the machine here, and I am going to raise that foot ever so slightly, and then I'm going to kind of mush it down over where I want it. All right, so now I've got my piping piece all the way over to the side, and I've got it right in that groove. So I've just folded this in half. I'm not going to press this. I find that pressing that in half actually creates a little extra space in the piping that I don't want. And so I'm just taking my hand right now and I'm just kind of sliding that over there, and then I'm going to use my stiletto to help keep that in place. So now what I need to do, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. All right, so that you can see where my needle is. So I need the needle to be close to the edge of the piping, but not right on top of it. The goal when I'm finished is that I have nice, clean, finished piping and that it's really tight. I don't want to have sloppy piping, so I don't want there to be a lot of extra fabric there. But most of us don't just make piping just because we want to make piping. We're usually making it because we need to insert it into something. I will have a video how to insert piping. So if you're after the how to insert it part, this is not the right video to watch. Check out our YouTube channel for that. But in this video, we're going to make it. But we're going to make it assuming that we're going to put it into something. And so what I have to do is each time I sew the piping on, I want to get closer to the piping. And the reason that I want to get closer to it as I sew it on is so that each time I'm sewing, I actually don't see the previous line of stitching. So if you were making this particular piping, you would certainly not be using the variegated thread that I have in here, but I am doing this so that you can actually see where we're at. And so I have the needle position right now way over to the right. And I want to move that much closer to the left side. So I'm going to move my needle position. All right. And what I want to do is that red line right there is where my final stitching line is going to be. Okay. So I need to be a click or two away from that, just a click or two away from it towards the right. So make sure my needle is all the way up, and I am going to move that over and right, maybe one more. So there we go. I've moved my needle position over. So I'm using a straight stitch. I'm using the length of 2.5. I'm sewing on a Brother Luminaire, and I have my left-right shift in 4.25 right now, which has moved my needle position just a bit to the right from where I eventually want to be. And so I'm gonna, again, just make sure that I've got everything tucked in here nice and tight, and I'm gonna start stitching. And I don't want to tug and pull, I just want to gently guide. And I'm not too concerned if the fabric pieces shift on the edge over here ever so slightly, because I'm going to be trimming that down later, and I purposely cut this so that it was a little bit bigger. I find it's a little easier to work with something a little bit bigger than it is to work with something super tiny. All right, and I'm gonna cut that, and gonna zoom out here so that you guys can see this. All right, and so here I have the start of my piping. So you can see that I'm gonna have some space here in order to keep getting closer to the actual piping, which means I'm not gonna see the existing stitch line. But I am going to be able to get right in there and make that a nice, crisp piece of piping. So the next thing that I need to do is trim this up to go wherever it is that I need it to go. So we have a really cool video on our YouTube channel. It is for the Piping Hot binding tool. It's going to make trimming up this piping super easy. So if your next step is to put your piping into something, you'll want to check out that video on the Piping Hot binding tool. Thanks, guys.